Hey, everybody out there, welcome back to 91.8 The Fan. I am your favorite holiday-themed host, the DJ Christmas, and I have with me a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself to the masses out there?
Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. But no, wait, I'm Christmas.
Oh
You're
yes,
someone
that's
different.
right. I'm sorry. I had a displacement moment. I'm Jason Thompson, writer for Anime News Network, Otaku USA, and author of a bunch of comics. Hello.
Hello, and before we got things rolling, you actually sent me a few copies of some of these comics, and I gotta say, they're pretty cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I started in the industry working for Viz, and I worked there as a manga editor for quite a while. And but I left them a couple of years ago. I left them to do Manga: The Complete Guide, my encyclopedia of manga, and I moved on from that to do King of RPGs with my friend Victor Howe, and also the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadass, an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. And yeah, I like to draw. I like to write. I like to read manga. I mean, these are all aspects of these are all sparkling facets of the gem that is I, or something like that.
Yeah, and now you didn't get a chance to throw me a copy of Manga Complete Guy. What is that all about?
Manga: The Complete Guide was a book I did for Random House. It's still available. It's an encyclopedia of basically I gathered all the manga that had been published in English at the time when I wrote the book, which was in 2007, so several years ago.
Hmm.
I basically collected every single manga that had been translated into English officially, and I read them all and wrote reviews of every single one of them. So about 1,000 titles. It took me about 8 months to read them all and write all the reviews, and so basically I was just doing nothing but reading manga for 16 hours a day for 8 months. With the blinds drawn in my apartment. And yeah, it was an epic achievement. It had a adult and yaoi section, and all the other niceties you'd expect in a book that reviews every manga that exists, regardless of regardless of quality, obviously.
Quality, genre, author.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I had actually originally proposed doing the book for Viz, but they never went for the idea. But then some guy who would work at Viz left them and went to Random House, and so he was like, "Well, why don't we do the book?" And so they got in touch with me.
Oh, that sounds pretty neat. It's like an amalgamation of all the sort of tropes you come to expect from manga, at least, 5 years ago anyway.
Yeah, it's too bad they haven't done an updated version. I did some more reviews, which they posted online for a while on the Random House website, but yeah, they haven't pursued a sequel, which is a shame because it actually sold pretty well. But anyways, so I write about manga now for Anime News Network, where I do the House of 1,000 manga column every week, and I'm also the manga editor for Otaku USA magazine. So I pretty much keep track of everything that's coming out, and read it there. Yeah, I mean, I love manga. I got into it when I was in college, many years ago. At when there was an anime club there. At the time, there wasn't really anything on TV. So yeah, I was back in the like VHS fan sub days. I was watching Maison Koku and Video Girl Eye and all the other rom com and science fiction titles that I quickly grew to love. So yeah, I just sort of moved on from there, and I was lucky enough to get a job in the industry.
Yeah, my start with manga was kind of weird. I was always, the nerdy outcast kid pretty much throughout my public school life. And then once I hit eighth grade in 2004, 2005, I found like a group of five or six friends that introduced me to manga. And the unfortunate part, I guess I could say about that is most of them were female. So they got me started off with, you know, Dragon Knights and Inuyasha, and I've even read a couple volumes of Gravitation. So
That's not unfortunate. I had to stay in my house and read literally hundreds of yaoi to write manga, the complete guide. You just gotta go with the flow. It's perfectly harmless.
yeah, I guess, but ever
Yeah,
since ever
it
since
doesn't. It
then,
doesn't matter.
but like I didn't have any, shonen friends, so I never read any, shonen manga back in the day,
Oh,
like One
man,
Piece or Dragon Ball. It was,
man, that's a shame. Yeah, you have to have a balanced diet. You have to have your vitamin shonen and your vitamin shojo and your carbohydrates. I like I like various types of manga. And from the shonen and shoujo up to like the seinen and more mature stuff. I do have a really really soft spot for really over the top, cheesy like gar hyperviolent manga of the '80s ilk.
mm.
You know like Bastard on Iron Walk Jan and I mean the titles you'd expect. But
Something like Gantz or
exactly, yeah.
yeah. And then over the years, I developed my anime sense, and I've been watching more anime than I have been manga. But I've been trying to go back and collect a few select series. I actually only recently found out that somebody saved Rave Master from the pits of despair and published the last three volumes as an omnibus. I'm like, oh, I need to go back and collect all of Rave Master.
Yeah, man, it's been ages since I read that. I have to go back and reread it too.
Rave Master and Mare, American Awakens Romance,
Yeah,
were two of the series that were passed around like a community tobacco pipe in my high school. Like somebody would get the newest volume and then they'd pass it around. Death Note was like that too when it first
dude,
hit the
yeah.
scene.
Man, I love Death Note. I mean, it has its ups and downs, but it's so good.
For me, there's always the appeal of a long-running series like One Piece or Dragon Ball, but I feel like
Yeah,
somewhere within 10 and 20 volumes is great for a manga, and that's why I love Death Note so much, and that's why I love Mare so much because it gets everything across that it wants to in such a compact format that it's
yeah,
it's easy to enjoy.
totally. Yeah, it's not so long that it has to repeat itself and where it become predictable. I mean, even Death Note. Some people feel that it should have ended. Well, there's one obvious no, it's no spoiler, but there's one obvious place that it could have ended right in the middle of the
Yeah,
series. But I mean, I was really satisfied with it. It's different, yeah, it's different from a lot of manga in that way. Um, it's definitely a good thing to have an ending and like an overall story arc as opposed to just sort of randomly going on and they go to some new place and they find some new bad guys or some new bad guys show up or in the case of like a romantic manga like some new love interest shows up and there's some stupid fight over something and it's yeah. Manga can be formulaic, but I like it. I like it a lot. When I first discovered it, it had stuff that I wasn't seeing anywhere in American comics, and I like American comics too. Although I tend to like more of the, I tend to like more of the independent and weird stuff more than superhero comics. But yeah. But obviously, I love the manga, and I tend to read more of it than I watch anime, and I think that's partly because when I like discovered anime, I was always watching it with my friends,
mm.
and I don't get that. It's not as fun for me to watch anime alone as it is to read manga
Yeah, I
alone.
know what you're saying. Anime lends itself more to a community aspect where
Yeah,
a manga is just something you can sit by yourself in a quiet corner for an hour or so and just, blast through a volume. It's like, all right, this
totally.
was nice.
Yeah, and also I love anime as well, of course. But one thing I like about manga more is that often, especially particularly in the case of long series, I can read the manga version faster than I can than it takes to watch like the episode of the same thing. Particularly with like some of the series like Dragon Ball, for an obvious example, where it's so padded out.
Yeah.
Um, I can I can absorb information more efficiently in the form of manga. It's just a question of digestion, basically information digestion.
Yeah, I've had that sort of situation where, I could go either way because for me, I tend to watch anime because I feel like with a vocal aspect, they can get more of a direct approach across sometimes. But, after watching a bunch of episodes of One Piece, I went over to Barnes and Noble, sat down and read, a couple volumes because that's what you do. You just pop down to Barnes and Noble. It's like, all right, let's blast through some of the manga sections today. They don't care.
Yep, yep.
And just, going back and reading Sanji's backstory, for anybody that knows One Piece,
Mhm.
I started tearing up in the Barnes and Noble, like, wow, this is actually really powerful. So it's all just a matter of how it's portrayed and how well it's portrayed.
Wow, yeah, that's a good question actually. What manga have you read that affected you the most emotionally? Hmm. Well, I asked first.
Uh, I would definitely say One Piece. It was, I've read a bit of Sergeant Frog for laughs here and there, but
Yeah.
out of all the manga I've read, One Piece was the first one to really hit me like that. It's like, oh wow, this is a genuine heart-wrenching moment.
Yeah, I think One Piece is really good for that. Also, Full Metal Alchemist,
Full Metal Alchemist is definitely really good at that.
and I do like a lot of the rom coms, or not so much the coms, but I like the roms. I mean, I like a good romance. Yeah, I mean, although now I'm blanking on it, giving you an example because I want it to be like the most awesome example ever. So
Yeah.
that's why I won't. Maybe I'll come up with one later.
Yeah, for me, like if you ask me what anime, it's Sword Art Online hands down. I've never watched anything that made me experience such a myriad of emotions. It's like, wow, this is top stuff.
Huh. Yeah, I haven't seen Sword Art Online, so I'll have to. I will have to mark down your vote. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's really in right now, so
Yeah, it
I
ended, I
understand it's
think
quite hip, as the kids say.
it ended not this last season, but the one before it, and I fell behind, so I had to shotgun like the second season in one night and like, let's do it. So
Yeah,
that's an adventure always.
the last series that I watched through to the end was Hayore Nyaruku-san.
Oh
With,
yeah, I've been meaning to check that out. I saw the first episode. I'm like, this is something.
well, I love the H.P. Lovecraft stuff. I
Yeah.
love all of that. I like horror stuff in general. And I like Lovecraft especially. I mean, it's completely, and I like rom-coms too. I mean, combine them and it's completely ridiculous, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't
and
I
I actually, yeah.
I watched the original spin-off, the Lovecraft Sensei one,
Oh yeah,
like the
yeah.
5 minute episodes. It was interesting and
Well, dude, those jokes were so hard to get. It was so obscure.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm so glad they did a full series based on it because I don't like the look of Flash animation.
Yeah,
You know,
it's nice every now and then to see a different style, but sometimes it's rough.
yeah. It's interesting how there's more and more stuff in Japan that's coming off of the web. I mean,
Yeah.
like, but it's especially, but I'm talking of anime and manga. Like, I was recently just reading the Viz Shonen Jump with they're translating One Punch Man,
Hmm.
which is based on a Japanese webcomic that you can still find online.
Huh.
Um, and which is the art sucks, which is part of the joke. But now it's like redone with like really sweet art by the guy who did Ice Shield 21.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, so it's like originally it was just this dumb. I mean, it's funny, but it's this really cheesy joke about shonen manga, right? About like a guy who can beat any enemy with one punch. So
Yeah.
he's depressed because he doesn't have anything to live for anymore. Um, and it was just really kind of crappily drawn. But now it's exactly the same silly plot, but it's drawn freaking gorgeously. And so that's really popular, or was pretty popular. And then like Hetalia also is based on a web
Oh
comic.
yeah,
Um,
Hetalia.
so yeah, it's uh it's it's fascinating. So yeah, I mean I do web comics myself, so it's interesting.
Yeah,
It's
and
interesting professionally.
speaking of comics, like I said, I actually picked up King of RPGs this morning and I powered through the first chapter. It's actually really cool, and I've never been too interested myself into getting into tabletop gaming, but I've heard of all the people that go nuts for that stuff, and It's definitely a nice window into the world.
Thanks. But what I was trying to do, with something like well, okay, what I started out trying to do was sort of like a Hikaru no Go type series, where it's like a shonen manga, but it's about tabletop gaming, like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. Although it also goes into Magic and other tabletop games.
Yeah,
And in the second volume, it's actually mostly about MMOs. Um, but I mean, all the different things that are just called RPGs, right? So yeah, my original idea was to do something like Hikaru no Go, where it's like, hey, check this out, guys. Check out this hobby. Let's do it shonen style. Although actually, as I wrote it, it became more of a parody, and
yeah.
it became more over the top. Um, and I'm happy with how that turned out. But it's not like it. But since you've read it, it's partly informational and it's partly ridiculous. And
Yeah,
because I like that aspect of shonen manga too, that
it,
it's really over the top.
it's definitely a lot of fun, and I was a little, you know, on the fence right until he has his mental breakdown in chapter one, and he becomes his character. I'm like, this is gonna be good. I like where this is going.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I used to work on the editor of Yu-Gi-Oh. So basically,
Ah,
that's a whole. It's sort of a parody of Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
yeah.
And other manga too, because I can think of a couple different manga where the character seems like some kind of loser and some boring average guy, but then
All of a sudden, they're really good at this one thing.
yeah, but then he like you like hit his like psycho trigger and they become like a freaking badass. So yeah, I always thought that was funny. So I just thought I'd do it for role playing games. Um, and of course, every character in the King of RPGs is a little crazy. There's not really any normal character. There's this like friend who's an obsessive otaku, and then the dungeon master is also crazy.
Yeah, he was
So
initially crazy with his online MMOs, and I
yes,
like that. I like that everyone has their own thing. They're not, you know, not everyone is completely into tabletop. It's like this is the one thing. It's exclusive. It's like
yeah,
it's not like Hikaru no Go where that guy's playing shogi. What a loser.
I know. Yeah, well, I mean, for me, what's most interesting about RPGs is the whole idea of the whole idea of like getting absorbed in them and getting into character. I mean, I don't mean you have to be sitting, if you're playing an MMO, you're not necessarily sitting at your computer going, thou varlet, how darest thou, but like the idea of just, of feeling that you're in that world or feeling that you have, that you're, the character, or feeling a personal connection to the character. So in order, so yeah, so basically, I figured that the ultimate role player would be someone who's, literally insane because they literally cannot, they're totally connected to their character. So, so yeah, so that's basically the premise of King of RPGs.
I think that's probably my issue. The reason I've never been able to get into tabletop because I've never been able to suspend disbelief to that extent.
Well, it's a good thing because then you'd probably be institutionalized and on
Yeah,
psychiatric drugs like the main character of King of RPGs.
yeah, it's just a little crazy. Hey, I fell asleep. What happened? You went berserk and destroyed literally everything. Everything is destroyed.
Yeah, it gets even crazier as it goes on. So.
I can't wait to read some more. I will have to definitely pick it up. The first chapter is actually a good chunk of the book.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun working on it. I actually originally was going to have it be like the first volume be like 6 chapters, but the first chapter sort of grew and grew. I mean, so it's about 100 pages, I guess, or about half of the first volume. I mean, it was interesting working with an editor. Luckily, my editor Caitlin was very easygoing, and she did request some changes. But actually, she requested that I use more space because at first first I was trying to cram too much into one page.
Yeah,
But I think it's much more manga. It still is a little tight in some places, but I think it's much more manga when you can kind of loosen up and use more pages.
yeah,
Yeah, but there's a lot of subplots and stuff in there.
definitely very cool. And Now, is there anything new and exciting that you're working on that you would like all the fans out there to know about?
Well, I'm just now finishing up my adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft story, The Doom That Came to Sarnath, which is kind of a fantasy horror story. I do a lot of comics on my website, mockman.com.
Mhm.
I can send you the link after if you don't have it. And I also I do a bunch of freelance work. I do some comics for Wizards of the Coast, some Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I'm doing a strip series now, which is called The Keep on 16th and Valencia, which is about it's about a group of four like teenage and preteen gamers who are all from a troubled background, and basically they're as part of their like youth rehabilitation, they're forced to play Dungeons and Dragons together. Um, so it's kind of like so yes, it's sort of like a D&D strip, vaguely. I was kind of vaguely inspired like Azumanga Daioh and stuff like that. If that makes any sense.
Mhm.
Because it's about a bunch of kids. It's about a bunch of teenagers and their teacher and so on. But anyways, it's very it's very like most of the things that I like to write. It's very ridiculous and over the top, and I like it a lot. Um, and yeah, I did a graphic novel of H.P. Lovecraft stories not too long ago. The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, which is a full graphic novel of my own artwork, which is an adaptation of a fantasy novel by H.P. Lovecraft, which is about it's about a guy's adventures in dreamland, like in the alternate reality that you go to when you're asleep, right?
Mhm.
And he has he goes on a quest there for this city that he glimpses in his dreams, and he wants to see it again, but so he ends up traveling all throughout the dream world and encountering all these various monsters and creatures, and also talking cats. Um, so that yeah, so I just basically I'm working now on getting that out for the iPad and for iBooks, and I'm actually working on another Lovecraft comic, which is with a friend of mine, which is basically going to be a gag comic about H.P. Lovecraft's life as like a teenager. It's about Lovecraft as the young hikikomori who didn't want to leave his room and was just just a high school dropout who was really depressed and so on. It's about or you can put it another way. It's about the struggles of a single mother trying to raise H.P. Lovecraft, the 20th century's most famous horror writer. So yeah, it's a very it's basically a hikikomori nerd out comedy set 100 years ago. It's
Very
historic.
nice.
Okay, so yeah, that's the premise.
Very, very nice. And now, other than your website, mockman.com, is there any other place where the fans can keep up to date with anything you happen to be working on?
That was mockman.com and kingofrpgs.com. And yeah, between the two of those, I pretty much put up a link to everything. And I'm on Twitter, of course. My handle is really hard to spell. A poor choice on my part, but it's got a it had some personal meaning. Handle's Kyung Bird, which is Khyung bird, and it's a Tibetan thing. So
Ah, that's very cool. And for those who are uh, Tibetan language impaired, the link for that is also right there on mockman.com.
hooray! Yeah.
Very nice. And now, before we let you go, since we are nearing the end of our time together, as sad as it may be, we do have a final thing to ask of you, and that is, would you like to participate in the 91.8 The Fan tradition?
Holy crap! What is that?
It's actually very simple and not as scary as I just made it sound out to be. We just ask you to do a quick radio bump for us.
Excellent. Let's do it.
All right, we just ask you to say, hello, my name is, you insert your name.
Okay.
I do this. You can insert whatever you want to put there. It's completely up to you. Creative freedom, if you will. And
Uh,
you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
all right. Well, let's go for it.
All right,
If
the
it's
only
not
trick,
the first time, you can
yeah,
try again.
the only trick is that we do the takes live on air, just in case there are any bloopers, because everyone loves bloopers.
Oh my god. Oh my god. My heart rate's racing. Okay. All right. Let's do it.
All
Or
right,
hold on. No, I changed my mind. Wait a second. I gotta think.
All right,
Okay.
whenever you're ready, we can go for a take one.
Tick tock, tick tock. All right, let's do it. All right. Oh wait, that means I should do it. Hello, this is Jason Thompson. I am the writer for Anime News Network and Otaka USA and author of King of RPGs, and you're listening to 91.8 The Fan.
There you go. You got it all in one take. You're not a voice actor or anything, but you nailed it.
Awesome.
Very well done. And do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners out there?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I hope you're reading some good manga. And Chris, thank you so much for having me on the air.
No problem. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. And for anybody out there who are just tuning in now, you've missed the interview. You look completely ridiculous, but it will be up on the website in the next couple days. So keep it tuned to your favorite station, 91.8 The Fan, because we've got everything you want and nothing you don't.
Hell yeah.